never really separated career counseling and mental health, and I'm not sure how you can. To be a good counselor, you have to understand mental health, and to be a great counselor, you also have to understand career development. I look at career development as really how someone finds self and lives out their identity through the roles that they play, and certainly the roles of family and community, and the whole notion of leisure and their spiritual orientation complements how they live out their vocational role. So I don't seem to separate them much. I think there's unfortunately a misunderstanding, and we polarize and separate the two, which is really unwise. If anyone looks at the workplace today, they can see the tumult that's occurring. And unfortunately, we focus too much on the word job, and we need to focus more on really purposeful commitments. And we've got to find a way to bring together people who understand the changing workplace and understand positive psychology and the whole power of a mental illness. The difficulty is we sometimes label people and get caught in diagnosis and don't help people think about how they can learn, take a look at their assets, maximize their possibilities to frankly live a sense of mastery. And we've had this unfortunate construct that suggests mental health is different than understanding how people develop. And career development, I think, encompasses all of that about how we develop, how we live in a healthful way, how we find a sense of well-being, and how we recognize the power of career is much more than just about work. I think counselor education is struggling because academic units are not having the resources they used to have. So we want to put more in a curriculum, and there's just not much room left. We keep extending the requirements required to get a certain credential or certificate, when frankly it's very expensive to do that for organizations. It's very tough to make that happen. And I've been on some credentialing boards, and credentialing is really a growing industry, and many times it's very profitable. So we have a real challenge to listen to the consumer and what they need, demand the competencies and the clinical supervision to make sure you have them. But I'm not sure it's always good just to keep extending the credit load out there and making these programs longer, especially when some of our folks don't make the kind of resources that can make that investment. And we find it to become rather elitist. Who can afford a private practice counselor, and what do they have to charge? And it reaches only a certain sector of society. At the same time, I think we have to be looking at education and higher education and finding more efficient ways to train people and pay attention to the competencies that are needed. I think what we have to do about that is to really get clear on what are the competencies, make sure everyone's a solid counselor, and make sure we value career development, because career development is really about life roles and well-being and finding purposeful commitments. And all the literature today on, even Seligman's work at APA, talking about assets and positive psychology and strengths-based models and helping clients find possibilities and feel empowered about getting a sense of mastery. We don't talk a lot about that in mental health. We talk about diagnosis and the negative side of life. And let's look at what we can do to educationally find a way for people to field test and go get experience, get feedback, try things out, look for cues, and find a way to live a life where they have really a sense of empowerment. I love to teach. And to me, I've been fortunate and old enough, I guess, I learned under Ellis and Rogers, which really was some of the founders of our profession. And I've been able to study people like Glasser and certainly pay attention to Seligman's work. And now I think I'm gifted to be able to, or lucky, I guess, to study under Savickas and people like that, and Spencer Niles and Amundsen and Mark Franklin, who understand narrative counseling and understand the integration of mental health and career development. And the whole notion of how do we take people from their intention, get them to tell their story, and move them to mastery. And what's exciting about career development is my students get a sense of, wow, this isn't about job, this is about my life, and how do I develop with a sense of healthy well-being. And that's really what I think is gifted. NCDA, I think, found a hole. They found so many psychiatrists and psychologists and counseling psych people who really knew nothing about career development, and they refer back to other career counselors. We've got to get more mental health training to counselors who may specialize in career, and we've got to help all practitioners who provide any kind of mental health to understand career development and the power of work and the roles that we play. It's only then that we're going to help the masses of people and democratize what we provide. An elitist approach that just works at diagnosis and labels people and extends therapy and counseling for a long time, it reaches a very small number of people, and we've got so many needs out there. To me, teaching, I feel so fortunate to potentially help all of our practitioners go out and be great professionals who understand career development in a way that really values mental health and the whole notion of positive psychology and narrative development.